After 7 long years, the millionaire returns to discover the incredible secret his ex was hiding. Jack Marshall stepped off the bus, the familiar sights of Madison's quiet streets washing over him like a long-lost memory. He had expected warm embraces and congratulatory shouts from his hometown, but the whispers followed him like a heavy fog. "Look who's back," they muttered, casting glances that held curiosity and judgment. Jack was only 35, but he suddenly felt like a relic in the uncharted territory of his own past. He tried to shake off the unease as soon as he spotted the neon lights of Sarah's diner. It was impossible not to think of her. Gone were the days when they dreamed of a life built together, hand in hand. In Silicon Valley, he had chased wealth and influence, but standing here now, he felt like a ghost haunting the remnants of an old love. The diner, once an emblem of struggle under Sarah's family name, had transformed into a thriving hub. Jack couldn't help but feel the pressure building inside him, a toxic cocktail of pride and resentment. How had she done this without him? His heart raced at snippets of a rumor he had gathered, that Sarah had a mysterious benefactor. Staring at the diner, Jack grappled with his own choices, his skin prickling at the thought that she may have moved on in ways he hadn't anticipated. The image of Sarah serving pie to happy families felt bittersweet, like watching someone else live a dream they once shared. Questions looped in his mind: did she choose this path for herself? Or was he just too focused on money to see the greater picture? The internal conflict spiraled. He wanted to applaud her yet felt betrayed, like he had been cast aside in the rush of her success. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Returning from the CTA, Jack needed answers. His muscles tightened with resolve. He was determined to confront her about the benefactor. But as he stood outside the diner, he hesitated. Maybe he wasn't prepared for the complexities. The idea of losing the narrative they once shared felt too daunting. What if she didn't want him back in her life? The thought cut deep, and he felt an intense wave of anxiety crashing over him. Despite the twinkling lights, the warm hum of laughter inside was almost oppressive. Yet, just as he steeled himself to step inside, eavesdropping strangers dropped a bombshell: the benefactor was none other than Sarah's late father, shining through even after death. Jack's heart sank. How had he been so blind? Was this how she had built herself up? Torn between fury and disbelief, Jack realized this candle burned on two sides. He felt the scales tipping, and deep within him, he began to question the very fabric of his identity. What was success if it wasn't grounded in roots? He stood frozen, staring through the diner's window, ready to shatter old expectations, bursting with tangled emotions ready to be unleashed. But just then, the door swung open, and a figure emerged, halting him and crashing into his thoughts with unresolved questions. Jack braced himself. Fate was about to deal him a card he wasn't prepared for. As the door creaked open, Jack's heart pounded aggressively against his ribcage. The familiar silhouette stepped into the light, her face momentarily shadowed before recognition flickered in her eyes. It was Sarah, and in that fleeting moment, amidst the laughter and warmth inside, the weight of their shared history coiled tightly around them both. "Jack?" she whispered, uncertainty tinting her voice. It was as if time had compressed and elongated simultaneously. Standing before her, he felt his past plea for redemption while his present screamed for confrontation. Would he reveal the churning conflict inside him, or would he mask it with a facade of indifference? "Hey, Sarah. It's good to see you," he managed, his voice barely above a murmur. The words felt hollow against the backdrop of everything that had transpired. She stepped closer, her smile faltering. "You back for good?" Truth clawed at his throat. I don't know yet. Just trying to figure things out." Around them, the chatter faded. He was painfully aware of the curious glances from the diners inside, their lives entwined for a moment, yet separated by the years of distance and decisions made. He could sense Sarah's hesitation as she wrestled with his vague answer. "Listen," she said after a moment, her resolve lifting. "I'd love to catch up. Maybe we can talk about everything. I still have your number." For a split second, Jack felt the old thrill from their time together tickle the edges of his emotions. But then, the reality of his silent wounds crashed back. "I heard he helped you with the diner, your benefactor." The words left his lips before he could censor them, tinged with a bitterness he had not intended. A shadow flickered across her face. Was it guilt or surprise? He couldn't tell. "Yes, my dad left me a legacy, and I've tried to honor that." Her voice softened, revealing a vulnerability that struck him in ways he didn't expect. "Honor? I resented seeing you prosper while I was drowning in my own ambition." The admission slipped out, heavier than he anticipated. "Jack, it wasn't about leaving you behind. I had to grow too. We had different paths." She paused, glancing back to the diner. "And we both know what happened back then." A wave of tension swept through him. There's a difference between growing and thriving. "I was doing it all for us, remember?" His fists clenched. "I do remember," she replied, holding his gaze with an intensity he had never seen. "But did you ever stop to consider that maybe success isn't only measured in dollars? Maybe I needed that support, even if it came differently than you imagined." His mind spiraled. He wanted to lash out, but something within him flickered with clarity. Holding on to anger was like chain mail, it kept him isolated but also secure. Was this why he had kept his distance? Had he become the very thing he despised, an outsider in his own story? A lingering silence followed, and Jack realized the confrontation he'd feared was less about blame and more about their mutual recognition of change. But was he ready to let go of who he thought he was? "Sarah, I don't want to just catch up. I'm here to figure out who I am now, not just who I used to be." Her eyes sparkled with a mix of understanding and surprise. "Then let us figure it out together." But before he could respond, a sudden commotion erupted nearby, a group of men laughing loudly, their voices thick with bravado. Among them, Jack recognized one face that sent a chill down his spine: Kyle, his old nemesis from high school, now flaunting the same smirk that had made his life miserable years ago. Jack's stomach knotted. The last thing he needed was a confrontation with someone who thrived on belittling those who appeared weak. "Let us get out of here," he said quickly, hoping to escape the inner turmoil and the specter of his past. As they turned to leave, Kyle's voice pierced through, dripping with mockery. "Look who's back from the big city. Doesn't he look sad?" Jack felt adrenaline course through him. This was not just a moment of weakness, it was a defining point. Should he confront his past, or retreat into the shadows as he always had? "Jack," Sarah said, her tone urgent, "you don't have to." But the determination tightened its grip around him. The time had come to face more than just his feelings for Sarah. It was time to confront his past. "Let me handle this," he replied, squaring his shoulders as he approached Kyle. As he moved, a spark within him ignited, a daring flame propelling him to reclaim not just his identity but his future as well. And as the tension rose palpably in the air, Jack realized that he had a chance to redefine his life, but it started with this confrontation. Would facing Kyle be the catalyst for discovering the man he needed to become, or would it pull him back into the insecurities of his past? The pull between the two sides of himself, the vulnerable boy and the confident man, spun in a whirlwind of anticipation. In that moment, he understood that his journey was just beginning. Jack approached Kyle with hesitant steps, the laughter and jeers from Kyle's group echoing around him like a swirling vortex of past humiliation. Every mocking comment echoed through his mind, digging up memories he had tried to bury. The knots in his stomach tightened further as he neared the group, each mocking chuckle a reminder of the high school kid who cowered under the weight of others' expectations. "Back from chasing your dreams?" Kyle sneered, crossing his arms. "Or did you just come back to mooch off your old friends?" The familiar mix of rage and shame bubbled inside him, but he couldn't allow it to overwhelm him. He inhaled deeply, feeling the air rush through him like a wave of clarity. This wasn't just about Kyle, it was about reclaiming his narrative, about refusing to be that scared boy again. "I'm back to build my future, Kyle." "Not that you'd understand," he replied, surprise washing over him at the steadiness of his own voice. Kyle cocked an eyebrow, feigning intrigue. "Build your future? That's rich. Didn't you run away when it got tough?" The laughter of the other men intensified, and Jack felt the heat rise in his cheeks, but this time, he fought against it, the cool resolve grounding him. "Running away is what you'd like to think, but it's more like I was searching for something that matters," Jack challenged, stepping closer, defiance coursing through him. There was a moment of recognition in Kyle's eyes, an inkling of doubt clouding his confidence. "I'm not that kid anymore, Kyle. I've learned my worth," Jack continued, feeling a rush of fervor ignite within. Every ounce of frustration he had kept tucked away suddenly transformed into empowerment. "I'm back to make something of myself, not just to fill a shadow you can't even fathom." Kyle's smirk wavered as the words hung in the air, the shift resentful and begrudging yet significant. Jack could feel it, a tremor in their years-old dynamic. "Come on, man," Kyle said, voice laced with disbelief. "You think you're hot stuff with new dreams and pretty words? You're nothing but a wannabe." "Then let's see who's the wannabe," Jack countered, fully aware that this moment wasn't about Kyle or the laughter surrounding them, it was about breaking the cycle that had kept him prisoner to his past for far too long. Kyle's bravado began to waver, and the realization hit Jack hard. Confrontation didn't frighten him, it invigorated him. He could feel the chains of insecurity slowly cracking as he faced who he once dreaded. Leadership was not just about power, it came from within, and it thrived in resilience. In that flicker of uncertainty reflected in Kyle's eyes, Jack recognized a significant change in himself. He was finally embracing his potential. "While you're stuck here playing king of the playground, I'm out there aiming higher. This is my home, but I won't let it define me like you did," he stated, steeling himself against the fire that sparked in Kyle's glare. Kyle stepped back, visibly unsettled, and the laughter around them dimmed. For the first time in years, Jack felt in control, a role he had always shied away from. What once would have brought him despair now fueled his determination. "Let us go," he said to Sarah, feeling her presence reassure him. As they turned to leave, he could sense the atmosphere shift behind him, the mockery deflated. But as they stepped out of the diner, his heart raced, not out of fear but exhilaration. He felt grounded, more attuned to the budding identity within him, the man who believed he was worthy of success and respect. Yet, just as relief washed over him, a new realization crept in. What did success truly mean for him? Was it about conquering the people from his past, or was it about building a life he could be proud of? They walked in silence, and Jack considered Sarah's words. He didn't need to rush into defining his future or unearthing buried histories. Maybe the path forward involved introspection, understanding what built him, and discovering who he truly aspired to be. "Jack?" Sarah broke through his thoughts, her expression encouraging. "I'm proud of you for standing up to him. I can see the changes already." Her words lingered, filling him with a warmth that nudged aside the remnants of doubt. But before he could comment, a loud commotion erupted behind them. Kyle's voice was raised, a threatened challenge slicing through the air. "Run back to your fancy life, Jack. You'll always be the loser you think you've escaped." In that moment, the remnants of his past came crashing back, a reminder that the struggle was not yet over. With each provocation, it became more clear, the real battle would be internal. Would he pursue the kind of success that avoided conflict, or would he embrace every challenge both from others and within himself on his journey to true fulfillment? And as they walked away, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that his return to this town might be more complicated than he anticipated. The real journey had just begun. Would confronting his past be the catalyst for growth, or simply another cycle of unresolved emotions? As uncertainty loomed, he braced himself for the forthcoming storms. Jack and Sarah walked onward, the hum of the diner fading behind them. The sun hung low in the sky, its warm glow promising another evening, but Jack felt the cooling edge of doubt creeping in. The adrenaline of confrontation was still fresh, yet it was underscored by a nagging question: how would he build his future? Beneath the triumph of standing up to Kyle lay a fissure of uncertainty. He realized the battle was far from over. Confronting his past had peeled back the layers, revealing a landscape riddled with expectations yet to be reconciled. Each step he took felt like a challenge to ensure that this wasn't merely a fleeting moment of confidence. "Are you okay?" Sarah's voice broke his reverie. Her concern was palpable, her eyes searched his for signs of distress. "Yeah," Jack replied, though his tone betrayed him. There was more to unravel than he had anticipated. "Just thinking. I thought today would feel different." "Different how?" she pressed, gently nudging him to explore the depths of his feelings. "I confronted Kyle, but it didn't feel like a victory. I'm back, but what does that really mean? What do I want?" Jack's honesty surprised even him. Vulnerability was never easy for him, but Sarah's unfaltering presence created a safe space for him to unpack his inner turmoil. "Maybe defining what you want is part of this journey," she responded, offering him a genuine smile. "Don't let anyone dictate that for you, not even Kyle. You've come so far, Jack." Her words simmered within him, stirring a sense of agency he had long dismissed. As they crossed the street towards the park, he spotted kids playing soccer, their laughter echoing across the field. They were unabashedly free, unburdened by the weight of expectation, something he had craved all his life. Why had he felt so trapped in the cycle of humiliation in the first place? Was it solely Kyle's influence, or had he also confined himself? He had chased success in a world built on his terms, but was he truly pursuing what mattered to him? Among the joyful chaos of the children, Jack recognized the importance of playfulness, an unfiltered form of self-expression he had extinguished in himself over the years. "Let us sit," he suggested, leading Sarah to a nearby bench. He needed clarity. The rhythmic pulse of life surrounding them could provide the backdrop for his reflection. As he settled, he knew he had a decision to make. Sinking into the wooden seat, he turned to Sarah. "What if success isn't just about proving everyone wrong? What if it's about something deeper?" The question hung in the air, filled with the possibility of discovery. Could success be about passion and authenticity rather than mere achievement? "What does that look like to you?" she asked, genuinely intrigued. "Honestly? I don't know. I've spent so much time trying to escape the past that I lost sight of what I really wanted. It was like I was running towards something without knowing where it led," Jack admitted, the weight in his chest lightening as he spoke. A realization washed over him: he had the power to shape his narrative. Jack now understood that building his future required more than confrontation. It required a vision grounded in authenticity and the courage to pursue it irrespective of external judgments. Suddenly emboldened, he recalled the art class he had taken during those formative years of self-discovery after leaving town. Standing at the easel, he had found freedom in the strokes of the brush, creating worlds untouched by scrutiny. "Maybe I'll revisit painting," he mused. "It might sound silly, but it gave me a sense of peace. It was my way of expressing the complexities of my emotions." The thought ignited a flicker of excitement. Sarah's face lit up. "That's not silly at all. Your art belongs in the world, Jack. You should explore it." Her encouragement felt like a gentle wind propelling him forward, an invitation to reclaim what had once brought him joy. As night crept in and the streetlights flickered to life, Jack pondered his next steps. He felt the stirrings of creative ambition but also the specter of judgment lurking on the edges of his mind. Would he find the courage to paint anew, to tap into that passion he had buried? But as they rose to leave, a thought surged: what if his return was not solely about crafting a successful future, but also about weaving together the vibrant threads of his past into something meaningful? The memorial park stood silent as they approached their car, yet the future felt vast and unexplored. Would he allow himself to embrace the vulnerability entailed in pursuing art alongside facing the remnants of his past? The echoes of Kyle's taunts twisted in his thoughts like an unresolved chord. Behind every decision lay an internal conflict, one that could shape him or hinder him. Would he silence that inner critic and find the fortitude to forge his identity through creativity and resilience? As he fastened his seatbelt, Jack looked at Sarah, her eyes reflecting hope. The journey ahead was laced with uncertainty and promised the next chapter of his life awaited. He turned the key, the engine humming to life, and wondered, could the conflicting parts of him find harmony in this new pursuit, or were more confrontations ahead? He accepted the unknown, ready to explore the depths of what his return could mean both in art and in life. As Jack drove through the familiar streets, the glow of neon signs and the chatter of pedestrians stirred memories buried beneath layers of time. He recalled those youthful evenings spent in this very town, full of dreams and aspirations dimmed by fear and doubt. Each corner he turned was a reminder of who he had been and who he could have become had he found courage sooner. Still in the confines of his car, he felt a sudden urgency to reclaim the passion for painting that once defined him. The vibrant strokes of color that once flowed from his brush began to feel like a distant echo, urging him to harness that energy again. Yet that nagging voice of judgment, the fear of not measuring up, of facing ridicule, threatened to drown out the melody of self-expression. It was tempting to allow the weight of expectations to dictate his actions, but he suddenly found himself questioning who he had become in that acquiescence. "Jack, I can't believe you're back." A voice jolted him from his thoughts. His old friend Ryan stood at a sidewalk cafe, a wide grin splitting his face. Ryan was a familiar anchor from his past, someone who had been there during Jack's darkest days. Their friendship had long withstood the test of time, yet there remained a distortion in Jack's mind. What had he brought to that friendship? Had he ever really been honest with Ryan about his struggles? "Hey, Ryan." Jack forced a smile, stepping out of the car, the weight of his emotions swirling like the dry leaves dancing in the autumn breeze. "It's good to see you." Ryan extended a hand, pulling Jack into a brief but genuine embrace. "I heard about your little altercation with Kyle. That's huge. You've changed, man. When I heard you were back, I never thought you'd stand up to him like that. I mean, you were always well, you know." He trailed off, searching for a way to express his admiration without stepping on old wounds. "I'm still figuring things out," Jack replied, the ghost of his past lurking in the depths of his voice. "Hey, you should come by my gallery later. I'm showcasing a few artists, and I'd love for you to see their work." There was a hint of hope in Ryan's eyes. "I know you used to paint. Maybe you could even show something." Jack's heart raced at the invitation, a mixture of excitement and dread churning in his stomach. Could his art stand up to contemporary expressions? Did he have the right to even consider it again? I'm not sure I'm ready for that," he stammered. "You were always good, Jack. You can't let the fear of judgment stop you. It's art. You say what you want to say, there are no wrong answers." Ryan's enthusiasm was infectious, yet Jack couldn't shake the nagging thoughts clouding his mind. As their conversation delved deeper into territory that melded nostalgia with apprehension, Jack considered the moment. He stood at a crossroads, a critical juncture where he could either retreat into safety or take a leap into uncertainty, the risk of rediscovery. Could he truly expose his innermost thoughts and feelings again through his art? Each recollection of his brushes on canvas whispered of the freedom he once cherished, yet fear still clung tighter than he imagined. "I'll think about it, Ryan." "I really will," Jack said, but inside, the weight of hesitation had morphed into determination, the desire to return to what felt authentic. Painting wasn't merely an avenue for expression, it represented his identity, the core of who he aspired to be. As their conversation shifted, Jack felt something pivotal change within him. They talked shop, laughed at old memories, but the real change simmered beneath the surface. Jack had not only reconnected with a friend but had also ignited a flame within himself to break free from the constraints that had held him hostage. He could envision himself at an easel again, immersed in color and light, sharing an unfiltered piece of his soul. But the shadow of doubt loomed. What if he failed? What if the world he had once hidden from scrutinized him again? The weight of those questions pushed against his resolve, yet a flicker of rebellion ignited. Later that night, as Jack prepared for bed, the call to paint curled around him like a warm blanket. Tomorrow, he decided, would be the day he began reclaiming his art. But just before he drifted off, the thought sparked a new worry: would his newfound excitement unravel under the weight of his past confrontations? And what of Kyle, whose presence felt more like a looming reminder than a threat? Tomorrow he would test the waters, tomorrow he would begin to paint, but the true challenge lay in proving to himself that he could be the artist he needed to be, without looking over his shoulder. As the moonlight cast shadows on his bedroom wall, Jack wondered whether he would face the truth of his creativity or allow old fears to stifle that passion once again. Uncertainty coiled around him, tightening its grasp, but he knew one thing: the struggle was only just beginning. The morning sun slipped through Jack's half-drawn curtains, casting stripes of golden light across his bed. He stirred awake, the weight of yesterday's conversation heavy on his mind. What if today was the day he finally reclaimed his creative spirit? The thought kindled a fire within him, a blend of excitement and trepidation as he rose to face the day. After a quick shower, Jack stood before the mirror, studying his reflection. Who was he now? The man staring back wore the scars of a tumultuous past, yet there was a spark of determination glowing beneath the surface. He resolved to confront that challenge head-on. If painting was truly part of his identity, then ignoring it would only lead to further discontent. He grabbed an old sketchbook he had tucked away in a corner of his closet, its spine cracked and pages barely filled. Flipping through its contents, he found remnants of ideas and concepts he had abandoned. His fingers brushed the pages tenderly, as if reconnecting with a long-lost friend. Each doodled image sparked memories: nights spent painting until dawn, driven not by obligation but sheer joy. But that joy was shadowed by doubt, the familiar voice in his head echoing: was he a has-been? Did he still belong to this world of art? Steadying himself, he let out a slow breath, dismissing those thoughts as remnants of a past he was ready to eclipse. Today was different. Today was a reclamation. With a renewed sense of purpose, Jack drove to a nearby art supply store, the scent of oil paints and canvas wrapping around him like a comforting embrace. Each aisle presented a treasure trove of possibilities, rekindling the thrill he once felt: colors calling for his expression, materials craving his imagination. As he browsed, he slowly began to rebuild his toolbox for artistic freedom. His purchases weighed heavily in his hands, but in the pit of his stomach, he felt light, liberated. The excitement bubbled over as he returned home, mentally designing his canvas anew, every blank space a testament to every opportunity he had let slip by. He cleared a makeshift studio in his living room, a rediscovery space where he could once again manifest his thoughts. As the easel stood tall before him, Jack hesitated, the brush shaking slightly in his grip. It was a moment of clarity wrapped in uncertainty. Would he capture the emotions swirling within him, or would he fall back into fear? He had no desire to create merely for acceptance. This was not about others. It was about reconnecting with himself. With a deep breath, he dipped the brush into vibrant red paint, bold, like his resolve. The first stroke broke the silence of his still studio. The color glided across the canvas in jagged lines, echoing the turmoil in his heart. Each movement unveiled repressed emotions, the anger, pain, and confusion transforming into something palpable, real. Emotion poured forth in a cathartic release, the brush tipping between chaos and creation, reflecting a life lived in shades of shadow and light. The hours slipped by unnoticed as Jack surrendered to his process. Suddenly, a loud knock startled him from his concentrated immersion. His heart raced, external interruption felt jarring. He set down the brush, glancing toward the door, still smeared with fresh paint. Approaching cautiously, he opened it to find Ryan waiting, a wide grin plastered on his face. "You won't believe who I just spoke to," Ryan announced, eyes sparkling with mischief. "Kyle wants to confront you. He's heard about your art comeback." A rush of adrenaline surged through Jack, an unexpected jolt that both terrified and exhilarated him. Would he be able to stand up to Kyle in the same way he had to his own insecurities? Would his art be enough protection against the criticisms he had once feared so deeply? Once again, he found himself at a crossroad, the reflection of both his past and his potential loomed larger than ever. This new confrontation could either propel him forward or cast shadows over his burgeoning artistic journey. The stakes were set, and Jack realized that while art was a personal reclamation, the battles with his past might take more than strokes on a canvas to resolve. The time had come to face not only Kyle but also the fearless artist within. Each question rattled within him, apprehensive yet unwavering, the recluse he had been facing down, the artist he aspired to become. Would he have the courage to confront both the critic and champion that resided within? His heart pounding, Jack stepped back, contemplating not just the paintings he would create, but the bridges he would need to build. Tomorrow held uncertainty, but one thing was clear: the fight for his creative destiny was only beginning. Jack's mind raced as he closed the door, the weight of Ryan's words echoing in his head. Confrontation loomed, not just with Kyle, but with everything Jack had allowed to fester beneath the surface. A rush of adrenaline intertwined with his artistic resolve, creating a potent mix that spurred him into action. He returned to his easel, the blank canvas now a battleground for his conflicts. His heart thudded against his ribcage, every heartbeat a reminder of the fears he aimed to conquer. The painting, now an extension of his psyche, demanded to be forged anew. The vibrant strokes he had laid down earlier were a testament, but they needed depth, layers that conveyed not just emotion, but the essence of his journey. With each brushstroke, Jack unearthed not only colors but memories, moments that had both chained him and fueled his fire. Vivid hues of anger clashed against soft shades of hope, forming a chaotic tapestry across the canvas. An artistic metaphor for his inner turmoil, the piece symbolized the conflict that awaited him. Alone in his sanctuary, he battled against dark thoughts and self-doubt, but the brush became his sword, and the canvas his shield. Hours dissolved into mere minutes. The world outside blurred as he lost himself in the cathartic release of creativity. Every layered stroke felt like a reclamation of his soul, each hue peeling back the layers of his identity stitched together by guilt and insecurity. This was not just about art, it was about empowerment, about stepping into the arena as an artist reborn. When the sun dipped low, golden light filtering through the living room window, Jack finally stepped back to assess his work. The painting pulsated with raw emotion, a chaos he had finally tamed. But instead of feeling victorious, an unsettling wave washed over him. Was he ready for Kyle? Could he embrace the relentless scrutiny that would come with confronting his past? He set the brush down, the paint still fresh and vibrant. Exhaling slowly, Jack felt the weight slide from his shoulders. Yet the remnants of doubt lingered. Deep down, he knew this wasn't simply about facing Kyle, it was about facing the version of himself that had withered under the weight of trauma and criticism. Jack thought of all the messages he had received, streams of past acquaintances and fallen friends who remembered him for his talent. In those moments, a flicker of the Jack he once was ignited deep within, but the daunting thought surfaced: what if they were right to forget him? What if failure awaited him just beyond the door? Still, he stood, dancing toward the window, observing the world outside, life continuing unabated. The notion filled him with resolve. Shouldn't he allow himself a chance to transform his narrative? In any case, Kyle would not define him or dictate his future. Jack pondered his next steps. He carefully packed his new supplies, feeling the weight of possibility, the uncertainty of bold choices ahead. Tomorrow would bring confrontation, it would also bring opportunity. Yet beneath that opportunity lay the nagging fear that he was still the same man who had walked away from his dreams. The man who let praise slide like water off a duck's back. Drawing a deep breath, Jack realized he needed more than just artistic prowess, he needed personal clarity to navigate the confrontation that awaited. As he closed the door of his makeshift studio, resolving to take it one step at a time, he felt a sudden rush of inspiration surge through him. Perhaps this was the moment he would paint not only his inner self but establish a foundation for who he would become. Tomorrow, he muttered to himself, invigorated by his newfound determination. It would be an opportunity not just to confront Kyle, but to throw back the curtains of fear and step into the light. After all, accepting himself meant embracing the battle's every unhealed wound, every fixture of doubt. Yet, even as he resolved to embrace the future, the thoughts of how Kyle would react shadowed the excitement of potential. What if their confrontation unveiled something deeper, something he wasn't ready to face? One final glance at his emerging artwork hung on the wall felt like a farewell to the man who had shrunk in the shadows. Tomorrow promised to be an intersection of tumult and revelation, and Jack made the decision to embrace whatever came. Would the confrontation ignite a fire or extinguish the spark he had just begun to kindle? As dawn broke, Jack stood outside his apartment, a stark contrast to the uncertainty swirling within him. The crisp morning air filled his lungs with promise, yet each breath vibrated with the anticipation of impending confrontation. Flashes of his painting flickered through his mind, a vivid tapestry of emotion that served as both armor and reminder of the battle he was about to face. Determined to embrace the day, Jack decided to take a long route to the cafe where he would meet Kyle. The walk would allow him to gather his thoughts, to parade raw inspiration into a calculated confrontation. As he moved through the familiar streets, the city buzzed around him, oblivious to his internal storm. He passed artists setting up for the day, their brushes, colors, and canvases eliciting a reflection of his own journey and pushing him toward a newfound resolve. With every step, Jack confronted the notion of failure. What did it truly mean? Was it the culmination of every misstep he had made, or could it be reinterpreted as a vital part of becoming something greater? He had spent years avoiding this moment, cringing under the burden of his past. But now, his focal point shifted. This wasn't solely about meeting Kyle. It was about how he transformed setbacks into fuel for his aspirations. Upon arriving at the cafe, Jack's gaze drifted across the small crowd. He spotted Kyle seated outside, tapping his fingers impatiently on the table. Memories flooded in, tainted with regret. Had it really been 7 years? The quiet grumbles of shame and anger simmered, yet they were interrupted by an undeniable wave of self-confidence that surged through Jack. He wasn't the same man he once was. Those canvas strokes he had poured his heart into those were a testament to his metamorphosis. With nerves electrifying his limbs, Jack approached the table. Kyle looked up, expression unreadable. "Hey," Jack managed, forcing the word past his lips. It had to start somewhere, and this was as good a point as any to launch himself into the day ahead. "Jack," Kyle replied, his tone holding an edge that grated against Jack's resolve. There was no turning back now. Jack slipped into the seat across from Kyle and was immediately met with a wall of silence, thick and oppressive. Each second stretched like an eternity, taunting him as he assessed Kyle's narrowed eyes searching for weakness. "Look," Jack began, but Kyle cut him off. "You've been gone a long time," Kyle spat, the bitterness evident even in the way he shifted his weight. "You think showing up now changes anything?" Jack's heart raced, but he steeled himself against Kyle's taunts. This was not where he would fold. "I think it's a start." Kyle leaned in, every sense on high alert. "What do you want then, Jack? Do you expect things to go back to how they were?" There it was, the question that pierced Jack's armor, exposing the inner child fearful of rejection. Yet, here was the moment he had craved. He tightened his resolve. What did he want? A chance to reclaim his narrative, to redefine his story on his terms. He could do this. I want to show you who I am now, Jack stated, steadying his voice. I'm not the same artist you once knew. I've grown, I've made mistakes, but I've learned. And I'm ready to face whatever judgment you have for me. As the words surged forth, Jack felt an energy shift. It was as if the weight of years collapsed into the confident space he constructed through personal growth and artistic expression. Kyle's gaze shifted, surprise flickering across his features before retreating behind a practiced facade. But what lay behind that expression? Jack sensed he was on the precipice of a revelation, a confrontation not just with Kyle, but with parts of himself he had long kept buried. In that moment, the thread of doubt intertwined with burgeoning hope, leaving Jack teetering on a threshold of possibility. Would Kyle's response unravel the newfound foundation he had built or solidify it? For the first time, Jack felt not only prepared for confrontation but curious about its unfolding. As silence enveloped them like a shroud, the air crackled with tension. Would they merely peel away the layers of animosity, or would something deeper emerge, setting both their fates irrevocably on a new course? Would this confrontation serve as a pivot point in Jack's journey of self-discovery? The stakes rose higher as he awaited Kyle's next words, sensing that the true battle had only just begun. The oppressive silence hung between them, each second echoing with the weight of unresolved emotions. Jack's pulse quickened, as if propelling him forward into the unknown. Suddenly, Kyle's facade cracked, an acknowledgement that something deeper simmered beneath the surface. You think you can just waltz back in and act like everything's fine? Kyle challenged, leaning back in his chair. The skepticism in his voice was laced with pain, and Jack recognized that this confrontation wasn't merely about their past, it was also about Kyle's trauma. The very thought ignited a spark of empathy within him. I'm not pretending, Jack replied, his tone steadier than he felt. I know I left you with questions. You deserve answers, not excuses. Kyle's skepticism morphed into curiosity, a flicker almost lost among the shards of resentment. Then tell me why now? What has changed? Every word felt like a weightlifting as Jack grappled for clarity amidst the flood of his thoughts. I've taken time to understand who I am, to reflect on my mistakes. Leaving was my way of running, but I've learned that facing the past is the only true way to grow. Jack paused, scanning Kyle's face for any sign of softness. It was a delicate balance, swaying between honesty and vulnerability. I became an artist, he continued, a slight edge of pride breaking through his nerves. After all those years of trying to escape, I poured everything into my painting. Each stroke taught me grit and resilience. I finally realized that the only way to confront the specter of failure was to channel that pain into something beautiful. For the first time, Kyle's defenses seemed to waver. His narrowed eyes softened, an acknowledgement of Jack's evolution sparkled momentarily in the depths of his gaze. Jack seized the opportunity, sensing a glimmer of hope. But I'm not here to just showcase my art, he added, I want to reconnect. I want to rebuild on something more honest than what we had before. I'm ready to be present, not just as an artist, but as a man who has finally learned what it means to be accountable. Kyle hesitated, chewing on Jack's words. The barista arrived with 2 coffees, interjecting a brief pause, thrusting Jack back into the tangible world. As the coffee aroma enveloped them, the moment hung thick with unspoken feelings, the air laden with unresolved issues that both artists carried like an unfinished canvas. You expect me to believe this? Kyle snapped, the irritation slipping back into his voice. You think a few strokes on a canvas will change everything? The challenge sparked a reflexive response in Jack, awakening his inner fire. It's not about the art itself, Kyle. It's about understanding that life is a collection of experiences, each misstep a lesson learned. Trust doesn't come back overnight. It requires patience and sometimes, the willingness to start over, even when the history is painful. Kyle's rigidity faltered for just a moment, and Jack pressed on, sensing the tide shifting. I don't want to erase the past. I want to honor it. But I also need you to see me as I am today, no masks, no pretending. In that shared silence, Jack felt a pivotal moment looming, like the quiet before a storm. Would Kyle retaliate with continued anger, or would he allow Jack's honesty to crack the walls around his heart? The stakes crested as Jack prepared for whatever response would follow. The journey of reconciliation was on the horizon, and Jack braced himself for the tumultuous terrain that lay ahead. "All right then, show me," Kyle finally said, a guarded determination in his voice. This wasn't an invitation, it was a challenge, and Jack could feel the weight of it on his shoulders, the pressure to prove his words, to redefine the narrative they shared. The real battle was just beginning, and Jack realized it would require not just talent, but the unrelenting demand to dive deeper into his own psyche. The true test loomed. How vulnerable could he be, and would the raw honesty of his art be enough to break through the fortress of Kyle's skepticism? As they both took their first sips of coffee, Jack felt a crackle of electricity in the air, a beginning rather than an end. With the stage set for transformation, he understood one thing now: the past might not disappear, but perhaps, together, they could paint a new future, one brushstroke at a time. Jack stood at the edge of his familiar art studio, a canvas stretching high before him, unmarked and awaiting his interpretation. The sun streamed through the large windows, illuminating every nook of his personal sanctuary. The vivid paintings he had completed in recent weeks adorned the walls, manifestations of his turbulent journey filled with color and emotion. Each brushstroke was a testament to the battles fought, the demons confronted, and the resilience unearthed. In the wake of his confrontation with Kyle, Jack knew he had not only faced a rival from his past but had also unearthed parts of himself long buried under layers of hurt. For too long, he had allowed fear and doubt to dictate his choices, stifling the artist he knew he could be. But now, here he stood at a new crossroads, an opportunity for sustained transformation, not just as an artist but as an individual seeking authenticity. With steady hands, he picked up his brush. The palette was rich with potential colors brimming and ready to leap forth. Today's painting would not merely represent him, it would encapsulate the journey of self-discovery and affirmation. The swirling array of hues beneath him beckoned to be fused, echoing the evolution of his spirit. Determination filled his heart as he poured himself into the canvas. As he let the brush dance across the surface, a rush of emotions cascaded within him: joy, anguish, triumph. He felt liberated, unencumbered by the expectations he had once bowed under. For the first time in years, Jack recognized that success didn't require validation from others, it blossomed from within. Every color he laid upon the canvas was a declaration of self-worth and a trust in his capacity to drive his own narrative. Hours slipped away as he immersed himself in the painting, a symphony of emotions weaving through every stroke, every line capturing the depth of his experiences. In that serene solitude, he discovered that empowerment stemmed from not just confronting others, but embracing his faults and embracing the vulnerability that came with authenticity. It was an acceptance that transformed his existence from a struggle to a canvas laden with possibility. The afternoon wore on, and as Jack finally stepped back to assess his completed work, a sense of pride erupted within him. The painting depicted a mental landscape of fractured emotions mended together in a vivid tapestry of colors: blue for the sadness of his past, green for the hope budding in his heart, red for the passion ignited anew. It was chaotic yet harmonious, echoing the journey he had undertaken. As he admired his creation, the door creaked open, and Sarah stepped inside, drawn by the energy radiating from Jack's sanctuary. Her eyes widened in fascination at the artwork, and Jack noticed her absorbing the whirlwind of feelings represented on the canvas. "Wow, Jack, this is incredible!" she exclaimed, eyes sparkling with admiration. "You've truly captured something special here." "It's more than just a painting," Jack replied, feeling the weight of her words settle warmly in his chest. "It's a reflection of who I am now and everything I've learned." Her nod acknowledged the depth of his transformation. "I can see that. You've turned the pain into something beautiful. You should consider showcasing this work." The idea ignited a fresh wave of motivation within him. Could he actually display his art? It was a foray into vulnerability, but layered atop was the soaring confidence buoyed by his self-acceptance. "I'm thinking about it," he mused, the possibility dangling tantalizingly in the air. "What's stopping you?" she prompted gently. The question hung between them, laden with promise. Jack felt his resolve solidify. "Nothing anymore. I'm ready to step into the spotlight, especially now that I no longer seek validation but instead wish to share my journey and inspire others." And just like that, as if a light flickered on inside him, Jack realized the crux of his achievement lay in this moment. Reclaiming his narrative required courage, authenticity, and a willingness to share his truth. As Sarah kept snapping photos of the painting, he felt a shift within him. A solid confidence had taken root. No longer haunted by the specter of judgment or fear, he recognized himself as an artist whose worth was defined by his own standards. Jack's heart swelled with pride, the kind born from hard-fought battles and unwavering tenacity. He had conquered more than the perception of his past. He had emerged renewed, fueled by a desire to forge meaningful connections through his creativity. The world before him now felt filled with unlimited potential, and as he embraced Sarah's infectious enthusiasm, he realized his journey was only just beginning. He stepped forward to her side, knowing that the future held more than just a path defined by success. It was a journey towards fulfillment, artistry, and moments of authentic connection. Jack was not relinquishing his past but rather embracing it, turning remnants of insecurity into fuel for a brighter tomorrow. "Let's make this happen, Sarah," he said with a fervor that echoed through his veins. "Let's showcase this art. Let's share the story behind it." "Absolutely. I'm with you every step of the way," she affirmed, her eyes beaming. As they stood there, encased in a moment of ambition and hope, Jack felt a resounding clarity. With his heart emboldened and his spirit ignited, he prepared to navigate whatever lay ahead, unfazed by past shadows and thriving in the promise of newfound possibilities. In the symphony of colors and emotions he had poured onto the canvas, Jack had finally discovered the essence of his journey: transformation, empowerment, and love for the person he had chosen to become. You need to subscribe now to our channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that inspire individual transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support the stories that change lives. Comment below your reactions and theories about this amazing conclusion. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait even one more second to share this journey of overcoming adversity.